$2,000. The price tag dangles from the cream-colored leather handbag like a noose around my neck. My mother-in-law, Margaret, stands beside me, her manicured fingers stroking the designer logo as if it were a beloved pet. I'm Sawyer, and this moment in the boutique marks the beginning of my personal hell. Ryan promised I could have it for my birthday, Margaret says, her voice dripping with the sweetness that makes my teeth ache. He told me you'd take care of it today, dear. Of course he did. My unemployed husband, who lost his consulting job 3 weeks ago, is still making grand promises to Mommy Dearest. The same husband who just this morning reminded me we needed to dip into our savings for the mortgage payment. Did he mention we're behind on our property taxes? The words slip out before I can stop them. Margaret's face tightens, that familiar flash of disapproval crossing her features. Money troubles are so common, she says, waving her hand dismissively. Ryan assured me you're doing quite well with the bookshop. I grip my own worn leather purse tighter. The bookshop barely breaks even most months. You know this, Margaret. You live with us. Temporarily, she corrects, as if her 6-month stay hasn't already stretched to 14 months. And I've been nothing but helpful, watching the house while you work those long hours. The saleswoman hovers nearby, perfectly coiffed and probably sensing the tension. I catch my reflection in one of the store's many mirrors, exhaustion etched around my eyes, my brown hair hastily pulled back. I look exactly like what I am, a small business owner drowning in other people's expectations. My phone buzzes. Ryan's text reads, "Did Mom get her bag? She's been talking about it for weeks." I type back, "We can't afford this." His response is immediate. "Please, Sawyer, I promised her. I'll figure something out." Figure something out. Like he figured out the cruise he bought her last Christmas? The one still sitting on our credit card? Margaret, I start, trying to keep my voice steady. I think we should discuss this with Ryan first. She clutches the bag closer. But he's already promised. You wouldn't want to make him break his word to his own mother, would you? Especially after everything I've done for you both? The manipulation is so obvious it would be laughable if it wasn't so effective. Ryan will cave. He always does. And somehow I'm the one who ends up paying the price. I'm sorry, I tell the saleswoman. We won't be taking it today. Margaret's face crumples like expensive tissue paper. I'll just call Ryan myself. She steps away, phone already in hand, and I hear her voice shift to that trembling tone she uses to get her way. Ryan, sweetheart, your wife is being difficult. My phone lights up again. Ryan, just buy it. I'll make it up to you. The fury rises in my chest, hot and familiar. This is the moment. Standing in this overpriced boutique, watching my mother-in-law orchestrate yet another financial disaster, when something inside me finally snaps. I walk out of the store, Margaret's protests fading behind me. By the time I reach my car, I've received 6 messages from Ryan, each more desperate than the last. The last one reads, "Please go back. You know how she gets." Yes, I do know how she gets. I know exactly how they both get. And for the first time, I realize I'm done playing this game. The handbag isn't just a handbag. It's every boundary crossed, every manipulation accepted, every financial burden I've shouldered while they play their twisted mother-son routine. I start the car, my hands steady on the wheel. They want to talk about prices? Fine. It's time they learned that everything, especially karma, comes with a price tag, and I'm about to make sure they pay in full. The sound of Margaret's designer heels clicking against our hardwood floors has become my personal metronome of misery. 3 hours since the boutique incident, and she's been pacing, making phone calls, and letting out theatrical sighs that could rival a Victorian drama. I'm chopping vegetables for dinner with more force than necessary when Ryan finally comes home. The front door closes softly, too softly. He's trying to avoid confrontation, which means Margaret has already worked her magic. Sawyer? His voice carries that placating tone I've grown to hate. Can we talk? The knife comes down hard on a carrot. About how you promised your mother a $2,000 handbag with money we don't have? He steps into the kitchen, loosening his tie, the one he still wears to job interviews that go nowhere. I know the timing isn't great, but the timing? The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign. Ryan, We're eating ramen noodles 3 nights a week while your mother orders takeout from that overpriced bistro downtown. She's going through a difficult adjustment period. 14 months is not an adjustment period. It's a lifestyle. Margaret's footsteps pause outside the kitchen. I know she's listening. She always is. I had 3 interviews today, Ryan says, changing tactics. 2 of them looked promising. Once I'm working again? Will what? Keep enabling her? Keep drowning in debt while she lives like a queen in our guest room. That's enough. Margaret glides into the kitchen, perfectly timed as always. I won't stand here and listen to you disparage my son when he's trying his best. I set down the knife. Your best? Is that what you call making promises with my money? Our money, Ryan corrects. No. I turn to face them both. My money, my bookshop, my house that I bought before we were married, the house you both seem to forget I own. Margaret's face does that thing where she looks both wounded and superior. After everything I've sacrificed. Sacrificed? The word tastes bitter. Like the sacrifice of using my credit card to buy yourself a spa day last week? Ryan's head snaps up. What? Oh, didn't Mommy Dearest tell you? She borrowed my card for emergencies. Apparently a hot stone massage qualifies. Margaret's composure cracks slightly. I was going to pay you back. With what money? I pull out my phone, pulling up the banking app. Should we go through the list? The restaurants, the shopping, That's private. Margaret steps forward, reaching for my phone. Private? Like the $300 you spent at that boutique last month? Or the wine club membership you signed up for using my card? Ryan's face has gone pale. Mom? She doesn't understand, Margaret says quickly, touching his arm. I've been so lonely since your father passed. Shopping helps me cope. Don't. I hold up my hand. Don't you dare use his death as an excuse for this. The silence that follows is deafening. Ryan looks lost, caught between his mother's manipulation and the truth he can't ignore. Margaret's mask slips further, showing the desperation beneath. I'm making changes, I announce, my voice steady. Starting tomorrow, my credit cards are off limits. No more shopping, no more restaurants, no more... You can't do that to me, Margaret's cry is sharp. Ryan, tell her she can't. I can and I will. I turn back to my vegetables. And if you don't like it, there's a lovely extended stay hotel downtown. Ryan! Margaret's voice rises an octave. Are you going to let her treat your mother this way? I wait, knife poised over another carrot for my husband's response. In the silence, I can hear the years of manipulation, the weight of expectations, the cost of keeping peace. Maybe, Ryan says slowly, we should look at the credit card statements. Margaret's gasp is genuine this time. You're taking her side? I'm not taking sides, Mom. I just think... You never think, she snaps. That's your problem. You let her control everything while I... The knife comes down one final time. Dinner's ready, I announce, cutting through their argument. Though I doubt it's up to your standards, Margaret. Maybe you should order in, on your own card this time. I leave them standing in the kitchen, their reflections distorted in the window above the sink. As I climb the stairs to our bedroom, I hear Margaret's muffled sobs and Ryan's attempts to comfort her. Let them comfort each other, I think. I have accounts to check and plans to make, because this isn't just about money anymore, it's about power, and I'm done giving mine away. The bank statement trembles in my hands as I sit in my bookshop's back office. Numbers don't lie, but people do. And Margaret's lies are spelled out in transaction after transaction, a digital trail of deceit that makes my stomach turn. My brother Caleb leans against my desk, his attorney's eyes scanning the document. $10,000 in 3 months? That's just what I've found so far. I pull up another statement on my computer. Look at these charges. Designer boutiques, jewelry stores, wine clubs, all while Ryan's been unemployed. And these are all from your accounts? My business account. The words taste like acid. The one I gave her emergency access to when she first moved in. For groceries, she said. For household expenses. Caleb whistles low. This could be considered financial fraud, Sawyer. A customer's bell chimes from the front of the store. Through the office window, I watch Emma, my best friend, handle the sale. She's been covering more shifts lately, sensing something's wrong. I trusted her, I say, more to myself than Caleb. I actually believed she was trying to help us through Ryan's unemployment. Speaking of Ryan, Caleb shifts uncomfortably. Does he know? He's too busy defending her to see what's right in front of him. I pull up another document. But this is what really interests me. Look at these transfers. Caleb leans in, frowning. To an account in the Cayman Islands? 3 separate transfers, $5,000 each. My voice stays steady, though my hands shake. I found emails on the shared computer. She's been moving money offshore for months. The shop bell rings again. This time, Margaret herself walks in, wearing a new silk scarf I definitely didn't buy her. She spots me through the window and waves, all innocence and charm. I need to confront her, I say. Caleb grabs my arm. Wait, you need to be smart about this. Get your evidence in order. Protect your assets. She's stealing from me, Caleb, right now, today. I pull away from him. I'm done waiting. I stride out of the office, past Emma's worried glance, straight to where Margaret browses the new releases. We need to talk, I say. She looks up, that practiced confusion on her face. About what, dear? About the $10,000 you've stolen from my business account. The book in her hands drops. Behind me, Emma quietly ushers the last customer out, flipping the store's sign to closed. I don't know what you're talking about, Margaret says, but her voice wavers. I pull out my phone, start reading. 3,000 at Nordstrom, 2,000 at that jewelry boutique downtown, 5,000 transferred to account number. Stop. Her mask cracks. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're a thief. I needed it. The words burst from her like she's been holding them back. After Gerald died, the insurance wouldn't pay. There were debts. So you decided to create more? With my money? I was going to pay it back. She reaches for my arm, but I step away. Once Ryan gets a new job, Ryan can barely pay our mortgage. The laugh that escapes me is harsh. But you knew that when you bought those first-class tickets to Miami last week, didn't you? Her face changes, calculation replacing desperation. If you tell Ryan about this, it'll destroy him? Is that what you want? To hurt your husband? Don't you dare try to manipulate this. I step closer, lowering my voice. You have 24 hours to tell Ryan everything, or I will. And trust me, my version will come with bank statements and police reports. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I meet her eyes, seeing real fear there for the first time. 24 hours, Margaret, and then we'll see who destroys whom. She backs away, grabbing her designer purse, probably bought with my money, and hurries out of the store. Through the window, I watch her pull out her phone, presumably to call Ryan. That was intense, Emma says behind me. I turn to find her and Caleb watching me with matching concerned expressions. It's about to get worse, I say, picking up Margaret's dropped book, a self-help guide about overcoming addiction. Much worse. Because I know Margaret won't tell Ryan the truth. She'll spin a story, play the victim, try to turn him against me. But this time, I'm ready. This time, I have proof. And sometimes, revenge is as simple as telling the truth. The manila envelope sits on my kitchen table like a loaded gun. Inside are printouts of every transaction, every transfer, every lie Margaret has woven into our lives. 23 hours have passed since my ultimatum, and the house remains silent, heavy with unspoken accusations. Emma sits across from me, her coffee untouched. Have you heard from Ryan? Radio silence. I trace the envelope's edge. He didn't come home last night. And Margaret? Locked in her room since yesterday. I heard her on the phone all night, speaking in whispers. A notification pings on my laptop. Another transfer alert. I open the banking app and my hands start shaking. She's doing it again, I say, turning the screen toward Emma. Right now, another 5,000 to the same offshore account. Emma leans forward, designer's eyes scanning the details. She's getting desperate. She's getting bold. I pull up another window. Look at this email I found. There are more accounts, Emma. In Switzerland, in the Bahamas. This goes way beyond shopping addiction. You need to call Caleb. I already did. I closed the laptop. He's drawing up papers to freeze all my accounts, but the banks won't open for another hour. Footsteps creak overhead, Margaret, finally emerging. The stairs groan under her descent, each step measured and deliberate. When she appears in the doorway, she's perfectly put together, as always. Only the slight tremor in her hands betrays her anxiety. "Good morning, dear," she says, voice honey-sweet. "And Emma, what a lovely surprise." "Save it," I say. "Where's Ryan?" "Oh, he needed some time to think." She moves to the coffee maker, her designer robe swishing. "He was quite upset about your accusations." "Facts," I correct her. "Bank statements don't lie." She turns, coffee cup poised. "No, but people do. Have you told Ryan about your little side project with Emma yet? The one you've been working on during business hours?" My blood runs cold. Emma shifts in her chair. "That's different." "Is it?" Margaret's smile is razor sharp. "Using company time and resources for personal gain? Sounds familiar, doesn't it?" "We're designing book covers," Emma interjects. "It's related to the business." Without declaring the income, Margaret sips her coffee. My, what would the IRS say? The threat hangs in the air. I stand slowly, understanding dawning. "You've been planning this," I say. "All along, you've been gathering ammunition." "Insurance, dear. We all need it." She sets down her cup. "Now, about those bank statements." "No." The word comes out stronger than I expect. "You don't get to blackmail me with my own business." Then we understand each other. She moves toward the door. "I'll tell Ryan you send your love." After she leaves, Emma reaches across the table. "Sawyer, get me my phone." My voice sounds distant to my own ears. "I'm calling Caleb again, and the police." "The police?" But she just threatened. "Exactly." I pull out a USB drive from my pocket. And I recorded every word. Emma's eyes widen. "You knew she'd try something like this?" "I knew she'd get cocky." I plugged the drive into my laptop. But she made a mistake. She admitted to knowing about the offshore accounts, on tape. "What about your side business?" "It's legitimate. Declared. Filed." I meet Emma's gaze. "I've been planning too." My phone buzzes, Ryan's name flashing on the screen. For the first time in hours, I smile. "Let the games begin," I murmur, reaching for the phone. Because Margaret isn't the only one who knows how to play the long game. She taught me well, too well. And now it's time to show her exactly what revenge looks like when you push someone too far. I answer the call, voice steady. "Ryan, we need to talk about your mother's offshore accounts." The sharp intake of breath on the other end tells me everything I need to know. Margaret may have taught me about manipulation, but she never learned the most important lesson. Sometimes the truth is the deadliest weapon of all. And I'm done playing defense. The divorce papers feel heavier than they should, tucked inside my laptop bag as I enter our favorite coffee shop. Ryan sits at our usual corner table, his shoulders tight with tension. He hasn't noticed me yet, too busy staring into his untouched coffee like it holds answers. 3 days since I revealed Margaret's offshore accounts. 3 days of silence, punctuated only by hushed phone calls and slammed doors. "You came," he says as I slide into the seat across from him. His voice sounds hollow, aged. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "Honestly, I don't know what to think anymore." He pushes a folder across the table. "I found these in Mom's room." Inside are bank statements, but not mine. These show transfers from accounts I've never seen, dating back years before Gerald's death, before our marriage, before everything. "Your father's signature," I note, pointing to a document. "But these dates—" He was dead by then. Ryan's hands shake as he reaches for his coffee. "She forged them, used his identity to open accounts, take out loans." "Ryan, there's more." He pulls out his phone, slides it toward me. On the screen is an email chain between Margaret and someone named James Sullivan. The subject line reads, Gerald's life insurance policy." My stomach drops as I read. She falsified his death certificate, changed the date, made it look like he died 6 months later than he did. Ryan's laugh is bitter. All so she could keep collecting his pension, his social security, using my dead father like some kind of ATM. The coffee shop bustles around us, oblivious to our world crumbling. A barista calls out orders. Someone laughs too loudly. I confronted her, Ryan continues. She said she did it for me, to maintain our lifestyle, to make sure I had opportunities. And you believe her? I don't know what to believe anymore. He meets my eyes for the first time. But I know you were right. About everything. The divorce papers in my bag seem to pulse, demanding attention. But something stops me from pulling them out. There's something else, Ryan says, his voice dropping. The police came to the house this morning. Apparently some of that money. It wasn't just from Dad's accounts. My phone buzzes. Caleb calling. I silence it. What do you mean? Remember that charity foundation Mom started after Dad died? The one for underprivileged students? Ryan's voice cracks. It was a front. She was laundering money through it, using my father's reputation to... He breaks off as my phone buzzes again. This time it's Emma. You should get that, he says. I answer. Emma's voice comes through, breathless. Sawyer, turn on the news, now. Ryan's already pulling up a news site on his phone. The headline makes my blood freeze. Local charity foundation under investigation for fraud. Former teacher and widow implicated in $1 million scheme. She's gone, Ryan says quietly. Left a note saying she's sorry, that she never meant for it to go this far. The divorce papers suddenly feel meaningless. This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about survival. The police, I start, but Ryan cuts me off. They'll want to talk to us both, about the accounts, the transfers, everything. He reaches across the table, takes my hand. I know you have divorce papers in your bag. I don't blame you. But right now, I need your help, please. The word hangs between us, heavy with implications. My carefully planned revenge is dissolving, replaced by something more complicated, more dangerous. My phone buzzes again. Caleb, probably with legal advice we desperately need. The news ticker on Ryan's phone keeps scrolling. Multiple victims, pension fraud, charitable donations misappropriated. What do you want to do? Ryan asks. I look at him, really look at him. The man I married, broken by his mother's betrayal, asking for help instead of enabling her for the first time in his life. The divorce papers can wait. Right now, we need to decide. Do we run from Margaret's mess or stay and face the storm? I reach for my phone, meeting Ryan's gaze. First, we call my brother. Then we find your mother. Because if we don't, she'll drag us both down with her. And somehow I know this is just the beginning. The text message comes at midnight. I know where she is. Ryan's words glow on my phone screen as I stand in our emptied bedroom, surrounded by packed boxes and echoing silence. Caleb warned me not to get involved. Let the police handle it, he said, but the police are already questioning my involvement in Margaret's charity foundation. 3 days of interrogations have left me raw, exposed. I text back, where? The lake house, Dad's old place. Of course, the property Margaret claimed she'd sold years ago. Another lie in her web of deception. I'm going there, Ryan writes. Now. Wait for me. The drive takes 40 minutes. Ryan's car is already in the gravel driveway when I arrive, but something feels wrong. The front door stands open, spilling yellow light into the darkness. Inside, the air smells stale, like unopened rooms and secrets. Ryan? In here. His voice carries from the study, tight with emotion. I find him standing over Margaret, who sits in Gerald's old leather chair, like a queen on her throne. She's wearing the cream-colored designer dress she bought with my stolen money, perfectly pressed despite everything. Hello, dear, she says, as if this is just another family dinner. I wondered when you'd both arrive. It's over, Mom, Ryan's voice cracks. The police are coming. I called them before Sawyer got here. Margaret's smile doesn't waver. Did you really think I didn't have a plan? She reaches into her desk drawer, and my heart stops. But instead of a weapon, she pulls out a thick manila envelope. Insurance, she says, sliding it across the desk. Against both of you. Ryan grabs the envelope, opens it. His face goes pale. What is it? I ask. Transfer records, Margaret answers for him, showing how you both helped me move money through the foundation. Your signatures, your accounts, your complicity. These are forged, I say, but my voice sounds weak even to me. Are they? She stands, smoothing her dress. Ryan, darling, whose idea was it to use the bookshop as a front for cash deposits? And Sawyer, those offshore accounts you discovered? They're in your name too, thanks to some careful paperwork. The room spins. I grab the desk for support. You planned this, Ryan whispers. All of it. I protected us, Margaret corrects him, like I always have, since before your father died. A siren wails in the distance, growing closer. The police are coming, I say. These forgeries won't hold up. Won't they? Margaret's smile turns sharp. Your brother Caleb helped set up the foundation's legal structure. Emma designed all our materials. Everyone's implicated, dear. Everyone's dirty. The sirens are closer now. Red and blue lights flash through the windows. You have a choice, Margaret continues. Stay and try to explain everything to the police, or... She holds up a set of keys. My car's out back, packed with enough cash to start over, enough for all of us. You're insane, I breathe. I'm practical. She turns to Ryan. Choose, darling, your wife's righteous revenge or your mother's protection. But choose quickly. The front door crashes open. Voices call out, Police! Anyone inside? Ryan looks at me, then at his mother. In his eyes, I see the same lost little boy who always needed her approval. Ryan, I plead, don't! But he's already moving toward Margaret, taking the keys from her hand. I'm sorry, he whispers to me. Footsteps thunder through the house. Margaret's smile widens as she takes Ryan's arm. Last chance, dear, she says to me. Family stands together. The study door bursts open. Officers flood in, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them. I raise my hand slowly, watching as Ryan and Margaret do the same. But Margaret's still smiling, and I finally understand why. Because in trying to expose her lies, I've become tangled in them. In seeking revenge, I've given her the perfect weapon against me. And now, standing in Gerald's study with police surrounding us, I realize the terrible truth. Sometimes the price of revenge isn't just karma. Sometimes it's everything you have left. The interrogation room's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Margaret's face as she sits across from me, her designer dress replaced by prison orange. 3 days since our arrest, and she still manages to look composed, unbreakable. Sign the confession, I say, sliding the papers across the metal table. Admit what you did to Gerald's accounts. She glances at the documents, then back at me. And why would I do that? Because I found Gerald's real files. The USB drive sits between us like a loaded gun. The ones you thought you destroyed. For the first time, her mask slips. Just slightly. Ryan's outside, I continue. He knows everything. About Gerald's life insurance, the forged death certificate, You turned my son against me. Her voice carries a dangerous edge. No, your lies did that. The door opens. Caleb enters, followed by 2 detectives. My brother's face is grim as he sets down his briefcase. The forensic accountants finished their review, he announces. They found something interesting in Gerald's old home office. Margaret's fingers twitch. That office was cleared out years ago. Behind the drywall, Caleb continues. A safe, with very detailed records. Gerald's dead, Margaret snaps. Whatever you found is dated after his death. I lean forward. In your handwriting. She laughs, but it sounds hollow. You can't prove... Actually, one detective interrupts. We can. Your husband suspected you, Margaret. He kept records, secret recordings, right up until the day he really died. The color drains from her face. He knew, I say softly, about the money, the fraud, all of it. And he left evidence everywhere. Insurance against you. You're lying, but her voice wavers. Sign the confession, I repeat. Take responsibility, or Ryan sees everything, including the truth about his father's death. Her eyes narrow. You wouldn't. Try me. The door opens again. Ryan stands there, looking older than I've ever seen him. Mom, he says quietly. Please. Margaret's composure cracks completely. I did it for you. Everything I did was for yourself. Ryan steps into the room. Dad knew. He tried to stop you, didn't he? That's why. Your father was weak. She slams her hands on the table. He would have ruined everything, our status, our life. Did you kill him? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Margaret's face goes completely white. Ryan, darling, answer the question. His voice breaks. When you forged his death certificate, was he already dead? Or did you... He was going to expose everything. The words burst from her like poison. He would have destroyed us. I had to protect us. I had to... Ryan turns away, shoulders shaking. The detective steps forward with handcuffs. Margaret Thompson, you're under arrest for the murder of Gerald Thompson. I stand, my legs unsteady. This was supposed to be about revenge, about justice for her financial crimes. Not this. Never this. Sawyer! Margaret's voice stops me at the door. You think you've won? You think this makes you better than me? I turn back. No. It makes me different from you. That's enough. Outside the interrogation room, Ryan leans against the wall, tears streaming down his face. When he looks at me, I see something I've never seen before. Freedom. The divorce papers, he says. Do you still have them? I nod. Good. He straightens up. Because I need to start over, without her shadow, without her lies. Ryan. Thank you, he cuts me off, for showing me the truth, even when I didn't want to see it. The detective emerges, leading Margaret away. She holds her head high, but her eyes tell a different story. The story of a woman who destroyed everything she claimed to protect. As they pass, she whispers, Karma's a patient enemy, dear. I watch them disappear down the corridor, Ryan's words echoing in my mind. Starting over. Maybe that's what this was always about. Not revenge, but resurrection. The chance to build something new from the ashes of necessary destruction. I pull out my phone, text Emma. It's done. Because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't in destroying someone else's life. It's in reclaiming your own. The cream-colored handbag sits on my desk at the bookshop, price tag still attached. Margaret's final purchase request, the one that started everything. Emma watches as I lift it, feeling its weight one last time. What are you going to do with it? She asks. Through the shop window, autumn leaves scatter across the sidewalk. The store's been closed for inventory, but really, I needed space to sort through more than just books. Return it, I say, placing it in a shopping bag. Some things aren't worth keeping. My phone buzzes, a text from Ryan. Signed the papers, they're with Caleb. Simple words marking the end of a complicated story. I don't reply. The website launches tomorrow, Emma says, changing the subject. She pulls up our new digital storefront on her laptop. Online rare book sales. Who knew your obsession with first editions would turn into this? I manage a smile. Better than offshore accounts. The bell above the door chimes. Caleb enters, holding a manila envelope and a newspaper. Thought you might want to see this, he says, handing me the paper. The headline reads, Local teacher pleads guilty in fraud case. Below it, a smaller headline, Murder investigation ongoing. She took the deal? Emma asks. 20 years. Caleb sets the envelope on my desk. The divorce papers are inside, and something else, from Gerald's safe. I open the envelope, pull out an old leather journal. Inside, Gerald's handwriting fills the pages with dates, amounts, observations. But on the last page, there's a letter addressed to Ryan. Have you read it? I ask Caleb. He shakes his head. That's not my place. I text Ryan. Found something of your father's. Your choice if you want to see it. His response comes quickly. Bring it to the lake house tomorrow? You don't have to go, Emma says. Yes, I do. I tuck the journal away. Some stories need proper endings. Caleb picks up the shopping bag with the handbag. I'll return this for you. No, I take it back. I need to do it myself. After they leave, I walk through my shop, running fingers along book spines. Each volume tells a story of survival, of change, of consequences. Like the rare first editions I've collected, some things become more valuable after weathering time and trauma. My phone buzzes again. A message from an unknown number. Margaret. Karma works both ways, dear. Remember that. I delete the message without responding. She's right, in her way. Karma does work both ways, but so does healing. The shop bell chimes again. A teenage girl enters, looking lost. Can I help you? I need a book, she says hesitantly. Something about starting over. I study her face, young, but with old eyes, like Ryan's, when he finally saw the truth about his mother. I think I have just the thing. I lead her to a shelf, pull down a volume. Not a first edition, but something better. A story about redemption, about building something new from broken pieces. How much? She asks. Take it, I say. Sometimes we all need a new story. After she leaves, I pick up my phone, type one last message to Ryan. I'll bring the journal tomorrow, not for closure, for understanding. His reply comes as I'm locking up. Thank you, for everything. I place the handbag in my car's trunk, next to a box of Gerald's journals. Tomorrow, I'll return one and deliver the other. Two endings, neither quite what I expected when this all began. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about reconstruction, about taking broken truths and building something honest from the pieces. I start my car, watching the bookshop's lights dim in my rearview mirror. Margaret's words echo in my mind. Karma works both ways. Yes, it does, but so does freedom. And sometimes the best revenge isn't in getting even, it's in getting free. I pull away from the curb, leaving the shadows behind. Ahead, the street stretches out, empty and full of possibility. Like a blank page, waiting for a new story to begin. Not a story of revenge anymore. Just mine. Ew.
How many times do you think I've called you? If you can hear me, at least respond. Ignoring your parents is disrespectful. Get out.
Scott was yelling at his stepson, Tyler, who's partially deaf. What are you doing? Stop it! I couldn't help but intervene, holding Tyler as he sobbed and stared down. Even when I asked what happened, Tyler just trembled and said nothing. Something was wrong. Believing so, I said, I'll take care of him for now, and took Tyler home. My name is Kate. I used to work as a craftsman at the U.S. branch of a globally renowned Swiss watchmaker. Due to deteriorating eyesight and back pain, making long hours of seated work difficult, I retired from the front lines of craftsmanship upon reaching retirement age. Thankfully, I was asked,
We definitely want you to continue working with us even after retirement. It would be a shame to see you go with your talents.
Now I work as a trainer, teaching young watchmakers. I believe I have led a good life. I'm grateful not only for having found a job I can immerse myself in, but also for the good relationships and my lovely daughter, Christina, I formed there. When I was fully occupied with motherhood, the image of a working mother wasn't common. Yet both my company and my husband supported me generously. Christina was an easy child, seldom fussy or prone to tantrums. Christina eventually became independent, married a college sweetheart, and lightened my burden. Later, she gave birth to a son named Tyler. To me, Tyler is my grandson, a wonderfully uncomplicated and adorable child. Both Christina and Ben, as well as my husband Robert and I, showered him with love. My life seemed to be progressing smoothly, but of course, not everything continued so perfectly. The first incident occurred when Tyler was still a toddler, developing a middle ear infection that led to permanent partial deafness as a complication. It was heartbreaking that a child so young had to endure such a disability, but what concerned me even more was Christina's reaction to the news. Christina was terribly distraught, and when I went to check on her, she spent days crying while watching Tyler play with a toy car. At that time, Ben was still alive, busy with work but firmly supporting Christina. Eventually, Christina regained her composure and returned to her normal state. Later, she lived peacefully with Ben and Tyler. They looked like a happy couple and family to anyone observing. However, everything changed after Ben suddenly died of a stroke. losing her beloved husband, Christina seemed deeply shocked. At first, she coped, but after Ben's memorial service, she began to act strangely. She was no longer capable of handling household chores or daily tasks. When I visited, the house was a mess, and the kitchen was piled with dirty dishes of unknown origin. Christina was either wrapped in a blanket, staring blankly, or crying as if suddenly remembering something. In such a state, she obviously couldn't care for Tyler properly. When I visited, Tyler hadn't bathed for days and had only been eating snack bread. Christina had become like a large child herself. Worried about both Christina and Tyler, I visited Christina's house frequently, despite Robert telling me I was being overprotective. Eventually, Christina recovered from her mental depression, but then began to immerse herself in work as if escaping from reality. Having lost her husband, who was mainly providing for the family, Christina felt a pressing need to earn money and fill in as a father for Tyler. Although I was glad she had recovered, the balance between work and parenting was clearly off, so I continued to worry about them. While working, I visited Christina and Tyler, looking after Tyler and sometimes cooking his dinner to cover for Christina working late. Over time, Christina came to rely on me more, increasingly neglecting her home. One day I waited for Christina to return and sternly reprimanded her. "You're neglecting your role as a mother right now. I understand you're desperately trying to replace Ben, but consider Tyler's feelings too. He's lonely without a father." I spoke harshly, but it was true. Christina broke down crying, saying, "It's hard to look at Tyler because he resembles Ben so much. I'm scared that it's my fault he became partially deaf." "I understand your pain, but please, just pay a little more attention to Tyler." I said this, comforting Christina with a hug. A few months later, just after Tyler's 9th birthday, a change occurred in Christina's life when she met Scott Hansen. Scott was a young entrepreneur who had founded the online store GoGo Shopping, and he was seriously dating Christina, a single mother. When Christina confided to me that she was considering remarriage with Scott, I was pleased, thinking this could help her take a new step forward, possibly caring more for her home life. Most delightfully, Scott seemed to genuinely care for Tyler. At a joint family dinner, Tyler seemed to have taken a liking to Scott. They played together, looking very much like a real father and son. Soon after, they held a wedding. Tyler, holding hands with Christina and Scott, shyly walked down the aisle. They looked like a holy family, radiant and hopeful. I silently prayed for them to find happiness, also for Ben's sake. However, I would soon realize that this happiness was an illusion. A few months after the wedding, I approached Christina's house with a joyous heart, carrying a secretly made gift, a watch. I had crafted watches of the same design in different colors, each fitting Scott, Christina, and Tyler to commemorate their becoming a family. With a mix of anticipation and slight nervousness, I rang the bell, but there was no response. Could they not hear it? I wondered, using my key to enter. Then an unbelievable scene unfolded before me. The house was as neglected as shortly after Ben's death, but that wasn't all. In the middle of the cluttered floor, Tyler was sobbing terribly. Scott stood over him, commanding, while Christina pretended nothing was wrong. They hadn't noticed me yet. I reflexively held my breath and watched from the shadows.
"How many times do you think I've called you? If you can hear me, at least respond. Ignoring your parents is disrespectful. Get out."
Scott was in a fury, yelling at Tyler. Unable to stand it anymore, I opened the door and rushed to Tyler, embracing him as he sobbed, and looked up at Scott. "What are you doing? Stop it." Scott glared back, eyes narrowed. Without a word, Christina dropped a bombshell. "It's part of his education. Scott isn't doing anything wrong." "What do you mean?" No matter how much I pressed, Christina only insisted. "It's Tyler's fault for ignoring Scott." "That can't be right. No matter the reason, it's wrong to yell at a child like that." Then, from my arms, Tyler said, "It's not like that, Grandma." His voice shook with tears. "It's my fault. I'm a bad kid." "Listen, Tyler, Grandma knows you're not a bad kid. If something's wrong, you can tell me. I'll listen." Even as I spoke gently, perhaps out of fear of Scott, Tyler only shook his head vehemently. He almost spoke up once, but stopped under Scott's piercing gaze. Frozen, he clung tightly to my arm, trembling. Something was very wrong. More than just being yelled at, I suspected he might also be suffering physical abuse. Convinced, I declared, I'll be taking care of him for now, and lifted Tyler in my arms.
Hey, what do you think you're doing, you old hag?
As Scott moved to grab me, Christina held him back, saying, "Let it be." They exchanged a meaningful look. Sensing something sinister but prioritizing Tyler's safety over a confrontation, I left Christina's house. During the ride home, Tyler cried silently. When I asked if he had eaten dinner, he didn't respond. Realizing he might not hear me from the driver's side to his impaired right ear, a dark cloud of worry formed in my heart. Praying my suspicion was unfounded, I drove on silently. At home, I first bathed Tyler in a warm tub. Meanwhile, Robert and I prepared dinner. After his bath, Tyler wore one of Robert's jackets as pajamas, which was far too large for him. During dinner, after a long conversation, Tyler gradually began to share what had happened. Scott had been kind at first, but changed once they started living together. The trouble began when Tyler couldn't bring himself to call Scott Dad. Since then, Scott has taken every opportunity to be harsh. One time when Tyler didn't respond because he couldn't hear, Scott exploded.
You can hear me. Answer me. Do you hate me that much?
It turned out Tyler couldn't hear because Scott had spoken to his impaired right ear, but Scott wouldn't accept that he could only hear from the other side. Since then, Scott had repeatedly spoken into his impaired ear and then scolded him for not responding. Scott had wanted a relationship like lovers with Christina, wishing for a life mostly with her, sidelining Tyler. Recently, both Scott and Christina had treated Tyler as an inconvenience, often leaving him alone to go drinking late into the night, returning without even feeding him. It's a terrible story. The more I heard, the more pitiable Tyler seemed, and I was heartbroken. Accepting that my own daughter could do such things was difficult, but I couldn't believe Tyler was lying. There seemed to be no way to defend her actions. That night, after Tyler had fallen asleep, I called Christina. I wanted to hear from her whether what Tyler had said was true. Christina readily admitted everything. She confessed to the harsh treatment Scott had given Tyler, her own willful ignorance of it, and their nights out leaving Tyler alone. If that's the case, I can't send Tyler back to you. I'll raise him at my place. If you two can live your lives, you'll be happy too. Though my words were tingered with sarcasm, Christina simply nodded and fell silent. Wanting to scold her for lacking maternal affection and responsibility, I held back as I sensed Tyler waking. I ended the call. The next morning, I talked to Tyler. You can stay with Grandma if you want. I'm worried about sending you back, so it would comfort me if you stayed. Tyler immediately nodded. Surprised by his quick response, I asked, Are you sure? You might not see your mom or Scott again.
That's okay. Mom and Uncle Scott probably hate me.
His words pained my heart. Tyler never returned to Christina's house after packing his things. Robert and I decided to formally adopt him. From then on, our days were peaceful and lively. Now retired, Robert cooked daily, his newfound cooking skills not perfect, but always delicious and comforting. Tyler and I cooked together on his days off, and we went fishing and camping on holidays. Despite the abrupt change in his initial tension, Tyler's face grew calmer day by day, and he began to smile more. Then one day, I received a transfer order from the Swiss headquarters. It was a promotion with a salary increase, and considering Tyler's future, it wasn't a bad option. Thus, the three of us moved to Switzerland. In Switzerland, Tyler started attending after-school sign language and IT classes with other children who are hard of hearing. Although everyone struggled with the unfamiliar French at first, Tyler quickly mastered it and became the most fluent speaker among us. I had always thought of Tyler as a quiet child, but that was only because he had been suppressed in that previous home. In reality, he was talkative and cheerful, a side of him I was delighted to discover. After moving to Switzerland, Tyler became decidedly more proactive. It wasn't so much a change as a return to his true self. He also developed an interest in watches and began visiting my workplace frequently. Initially, he wouldn't stray far from me, but gradually he started to approach other craftsmen and watched their techniques intently. Tyler, affectionately called Ty by everyone, was adored and doted on by all. A decade passed, and Tyler grew from a little boy into a fine young man. He became involved in the development of next-generation hearing aids, and his achievements were even featured in international journals. His hearing aid caught the attention of American companies, leading to a partnership. As Tyler flourished, I began to feel the effects of aging, making work increasingly difficult. With Tyler's career path secure and considering my retirement, we decided it was time to return to the U.S. Fortunately, Tyler's hearing aids were highly acclaimed. They not only provided clear hearing, but also blocked ambient noise and amplified voices from the directions the wearer was looking, which drew widespread praise. As one of the developers, Tyler was invited for a live TV interview. Proudly, he stated,
"This device was inspired by my mother's craftsmanship in watchmaking, combined with IT. It wouldn't have been possible without the artisans who inspired its development and the parents who enveloped me with their warm love. I am truly grateful."
Tyler was now more proficient in French than English, so he spoke through an interpreter. Hearing his words on TV filled my heart to the brim, and Robert's eyes welled up with tears as he watched. However, the TV interview took an unexpected turn when Christina and Scott suddenly appeared on the scene. Faking being involved parents, they showed emotional support by holding Tyler's hand.
"Tyler, it's so nice to see you at last. Let's head home together with me, your dad."
"You've done so well, Tyler." They acted as if it was a touching reunion of a long-separated family. Watching anxiously, Tyler asked for the interpreter's help and said without changing his expression,
"Hello. You're the ones who abandoned me. It's been 10 years, hasn't it? How's go-go shopping doing these days?"
The couple's faces froze. "Tyler, about the hearing aids, your dad's site could exclusively sell them." She tried to salvage the situation, but Tyler continued in French, deliberately maintaining a formal distance.
"Unfortunately, this product is tied up in a project to be distributed free of charge to hearing-impaired children, thanks to donation from kind-hearted people. I can't give it to the parents who abandoned me. Besides, my parents are Kate and Robert, not you two."
"But look, this watch. Isn't it the matching one, right?"
"Right, Tyler? Remember?"
They showed him a luxury watch I had given him. Tyler slowly shook his head.
"That watch doesn't match mine."
Saying so, Tyler pulled a pendant from his neck. The watch was one I had completely rebuilt after he came to our home, changing all parts so he wouldn't remember them. Tyler had realized this later and had always kept it close, wearing it as a pendant when it no longer fit his wrist.
"I've never thought of you as my parents. Could you please not talk to me anymore?"
His firm declaration and the interpreter, initially translating hesitantly, began to speak louder as the story unfolded. Overwhelmed, Christina and Scott awkwardly disappeared from the screen. Following the interview, go-go shopping was flooded with criticism and complaints, leading to its rapid closure. The interview catapulted Tyler to fame as a young man who overcame adversity to achieve success. He received numerous job offers from both domestic and international sources. Now he runs his own company, tirelessly working for children with hearing impairments. Busy as a global entrepreneur, Tyler still wears the small watch I made, shining around his neck. Back in the US, Robert and I live a relaxed life, always looking forward to Tyler's visits, bringing gifts from his travels.
What's going on? As I entered my room, I was shocked by the sight before me. My treasured accessories and favorite clothes were all gone. Could it be a burglary? In a panic, I reached for my phone to call the police. Just as I expected, you're panicking. Mother. As expected, you can't mean that. That's exactly what I mean. I threw out your personal belongings as trash. What? Watching my panic, my mother-in-law laughed out loud and said something unbelievable. She had thrown out my belongings as trash? Why would she do that? I wanted to ask her for an explanation, but she started explaining before I could ask. How long do you plan to leech off this house? Hurry up and leave. I threw out your stuff to make it easier for you to leave. You should be thanking me. I see. She had always been bullying me to drive me out. Well, if she says so, I don't think I'll try to get along with my mother-in-law anymore. Understood, then, I'll leave. Good, that makes things easier for me. Make it quick, will you? But if I suddenly leave the house, I have nowhere to go. Can I have a week's grace? Fine, I suppose that's okay. Just make sure you leave after a week. I was given a week's grace by my mother-in-law. With this much time, I could look for a new place. Just you watch. I'll show you who you're dealing with. My name is Sarah. 3 years ago, I transitioned to becoming a freelance illustrator. Having worked at an animation production company after graduating from a vocational school, I had some savings. I'm thinking of going freelance soon. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, Sarah, I won't object. Give it your best shot. I'll support you. When I asked my husband Kevin if it was okay to go independent, he was supportive. I was surprised because I had assumed he would object. We had been dating since vocational school and followed different paths after graduation but continued our relationship smoothly, getting married in our 3rd year of working. This year marks our 8th year of marriage. Really? Thank you. Well, I'm a man who gave up the illustrator path, so I'm curious to see how far you can go, Sarah. But don't overdo it, okay? You can always rely on me if you're in trouble. Yes. I'll do my best. Saying that, I left my job and became a freelancer, but it wasn't easy to earn a living. There were months with no income at the beginning, and I often felt down. Maybe I just wasn't cut out to be an illustrator. I thought so many times, but I never gave up and continued to draw and post on social media. One day, a picture I posted went viral, and I became a well-known illustrator on social media. From then on, I started earning significantly from corporate projects and app stamps. It's all thanks to you pushing me. Thank you. No, it's your hard work that's been recognized. That's amazing. I really appreciated my husband. If he had said no, I wouldn't have been able to earn as much. Although I still hadn't saved a lot of money. Ideally, I would like to buy a house and have my own studio. Currently, Kevin and I live in a cheap apartment. It's great that my work is increasing, but I wish I had more space for materials. One day, my husband suggested that we move into his mother's house. The house is just my mother, and there's extra space, so why not? Really? Is that okay to just decide on our own? Of course, I've already talked to my mother. Ever since my father ran off with his mistress when I was a kid, there's been extra space. My mother said she doesn't mind if Sarah uses it. I couldn't see any reason to refuse such a generous offer. I immediately told my husband that we would move to his mother's house. 2 weeks later, when we arrived at his mother's house, my mother-in-law welcomed us warmly. It's been a while, Sarah. Long time no see. Please take care of me from today. Likewise. Kevin told me you're now a popular artist? Not really. Feel free to use the room as you like. Come on in. Living with my kind mother-in-law and husband, I felt no anxiety. I was determined to do well in my creative work in this new environment. However, I had no idea at the time that the seemingly kind mother-in-law was actually like that. After living at my mother-in-law's house for 3 months, I had gotten used to the environment. All right, that's the delivery done. Work was going well, and my workspace had also been upgraded, significantly increasing my earnings. Everything was going smoothly. I got a bit carried away, but then, 2 months later, my husband was suddenly fired, causing a major disruption in our lives. Sigh. What should I do? As soon as he returned to his mother's house, my husband sighed and muttered. What had happened? Did his sales not go well? What's wrong? Did the sales go badly? After graduating from vocational school, my husband worked as a salesman for a major trading company supplying factories. I thought he might have failed in his sales efforts, but the reply I received was unexpected. I got fired. Huh? What did you say? So, I got fired. I was laid off. It can't be true. My husband had been working diligently. Why then? You were laid off. Did you do something bad? Of course not. It's just that our department alone had significantly poor sales, and the company judged it as a bad investment. They told us to either spend our days as sidelined employees with a significant pay cut or accept a generous severance package and leave. It's practically a forced layoff. I couldn't ask my husband anything more. After being so abruptly betrayed by the company he had devoted himself to, I had no words of comfort for him. The least I could do was leave him be. From the next day, my jobless husband started spending his days lounging around the house. Honestly, I wanted him to change his mindset and look for a job, but he probably wasn't ready yet. Oh well. I'll have to work hard. For my husband and my non-working mother-in-law, I threw myself into my work more than ever. Sometimes, I was so busy that I skipped meals and worked from morning till night without stopping. This is bad. Maybe I overdid it. Even while occasionally having such thoughts, after about a month of continuing, a substantial income was deposited into my account. Seeing an amount I had never seen before, I inadvertently said to my husband, "You don't have to rush to find a job anymore. I earned $50,000 this month, so with this much, we can live without any luxuries." Whoa, that's amazing. My husband said I was amazing, but his eyes looked cold. Why did I mention my earnings to my husband at that time? From the next day, this became the cause of relentless bullying from my mother-in-law. The next morning. "Sarah, come here." While I was working, I heard my mother-in-law shouting for me from downstairs. Unusual. What could it be? Okay. Just a moment, please. After responding, I paused my work and headed downstairs. My mother-in-law was standing in the living room. "What's the matter?" "This. Could you do the laundry?" But I haven't finished my work yet." "That can be done anytime, right?" "I've been silent until now, but isn't it about time you started doing your part around the house?" "You're a daughter-in-law, right?" "Well, she has a point. I understand where my mother-in-law is coming from. Until now, I had been relying on her and neglected household chores like cleaning and laundry due to being engrossed in my work." Feeling reflective, I told my mother-in-law. "That's true, perhaps I was wrong." "Understood. I'll do the laundry once I finish the work I'm currently doing, so please leave it here." Afterwards, as promised, I completed the laundry and even cleaned the living room. Perhaps doing such things occasionally is a good break. I thought nonchalantly, but from that day, the bullying from my mother-in-law escalated. "Are you still just drawing pictures? Are you a kindergartner? If you have time for such trivial things, go do the shopping. I can't believe your drawings sell." And so on. She started complaining about everything. Every day, being overworked left me with no progress in my work. At times, I was woken up before 5 a.m. to make breakfast, inevitably reducing my sleep hours. I couldn't concentrate on work, and the amount of work I could handle each day significantly decreased. Though my income hadn't decreased drastically yet, at this rate, I might become unable to work at all. Worried, I decided to ask my husband to stop the bullying from my mother-in-law when we were alone in the bedroom. "Recently, your mother has been bullying me as if she's targeting me. It's okay to be used for chores, but being freely harassed from morning till night. I might become unable to work at all, so could you please kindly ask your mother to stop the bullying?" What a hassle. why do I have to say it? You should say it yourself. If you're troubled by not being able to work, why don't you move out? You have an income, right? What? What kind of response is that? I've been working hard because you've been lounging around without looking for a job. I think if there's a complaint, I should say it myself. But I can't just say such things to my mother-in-law. In the end, my husband turned his back to me and went to sleep without really discussing the matter with me. Half a year later, after enduring daily relentless bullying, I was mentally and physically exhausted. My husband still showed no intention of looking for a job. My pace of work had drastically decreased, and my earnings had dropped to less than half of my peak period. I'm so tired of this. That's what I thought, and before I knew it, I had left the house and arrived at a nearby park. I just sat on a bench doing nothing, but that alone was immensely soothing for me at the moment. About an hour might have passed. Feeling relaxed, I returned to my mother-in-law's house. I don't feel like working today. Maybe I'll take a nap. With that thought, I went back to my room and was stunned by the scene before me. What? What's going on? As I entered my room, I was shocked by the sight before me. My treasured accessories and favorite clothes were all gone. Could it be a burglary? In a panic, I reached for my phone to call the police. At that moment, my mother-in-law spoke up from behind me. Just as I expected, you're panicking. Mother. As expected, you can't mean that. That's exactly what I mean. I threw out your personal belongings as trash. What? Watching my panic, my mother-in-law laughed out loud and said something unbelievable. She had thrown out my belongings as trash? Why would she do that? I wanted to ask her for an explanation, but she started explaining before I could ask. How long do you plan to leech off this house? Hurry up and leave. I threw out your stuff to make it easier for you to leave, you should be thanking me. I see. She had always been bullying me to drive me out. Well, if she says so, I don't think I'll try to get along with my mother-in-law anymore. Understood, then, I'll leave. Good, that makes things easier for me. Make it quick, will you? But if I suddenly leave the house, I have nowhere to go. Can I have a week's grace? Fine, I suppose that's okay. Just make sure you leave after a week. I was given a week's grace by my mother-in-law. With this much time, I could look for a new place. Just you watch. I'll show you who you're dealing with. From the next day, I started looking for a new place to live. I considered a detached house, but despite my mother-in-law, I decided to move into a luxury high-rise apartment. Of course, I'm not taking my husband and mother-in-law with me. I have no desire to live with a man who relies on my earnings and does nothing but laze around. Although I haven't been earning much recently, I have saved up money from my past earnings. Using that money, I went to a real estate agent and signed a contract to purchase the high-rise apartment. Now, I can leave that house anytime I'm ready. And a week later, the day I finally left my mother-in-law's house, I broached the topic of divorce with my husband. Can you sign this? What is this? Can't you tell? It's a divorce paper. No. I understand that, but why all of a sudden? My husband was puzzled after being handed the divorce papers. At first, I felt sorry for you being laid off, and I pampered you, but you never seemed to want to look for a job, and you kept ignoring the fact that your mother was bullying me, right? If that's the case, there's no need for us to stay married. Maybe, but does getting a divorce mean I have to leave this house? Yes, that's right. I didn't tell you, but today, I'm leaving this house. Leaving. What about the house? You don't have anywhere to live, do you? Don't worry about that. I've already found my next place to live. If I don't like the bullying from my mother-in-law, he was the one who said to just move out, wasn't he? Are you really not going to regret getting divorced? Regret? Don't make me laugh. There's no way I'd do that. Besides, if I continued to live with you, I would surely regret that much more. I burst into laughter upon hearing my husband's question. Ah, well then, I understand. Reluctantly, my husband signed the divorce papers. Now, I don't need to support this man anymore. Next is the mother-in-law. Just before leaving the mother-in-law's house, I confronted her about why she had tormented me so much. It all started when I told my husband about my earnings. Surely, something about that must have displeased her. Thank you for everything until now, Mother. Yeah, I feel refreshed thinking I won't have to see your face anymore. By the way, why did you bully me so much? Oh, there's no deep reason. I just got annoyed that you were earning more than Kevin. I heard from him. At one point, you were making $50,000, weren't you? How dare you earn more than your husband? Normally, you should keep your income lower to save face for your husband. And he was paying the utilities for this house, right? He must have been using his savings to pay them since he lost his job. Unlike you, he's really a good kid. What an idiot. Was I bullied for such a silly reason? Moreover, it seems my mother-in-law is under the impression that my husband was paying for everything in this house. I'm looking forward to what happens after I leave. With a husband and mother-in-law who don't earn anything, they'll surely run into trouble soon. Though I thought that, I didn't say it. So that was your reason. I understand. A wife who can't support her husband will leave now. Goodbye. Leaving just those words behind, I left my mother-in-law's house. On the way to my new high-rise apartment, I stopped at the municipal office and submitted the divorce papers. Now, I have completely severed ties with my husband and mother-in-law. Even if they come begging, there's no way I'll take care of them. Upon arriving at my new place, I immediately began organizing my belongings. The room was spacious due to being in a luxury high-rise apartment, and I secured a considerably large space for my studio. All right. Time to work hard to make up for being disturbed before. After finishing up most of the unpacking, I immersed myself in work. A month later, a call came to my cell phone. Looking at it, I saw it was my ex-husband's name. What does he want now? Honestly, I was in the middle of work and initially ignored it, but he kept calling. Annoying. Losing my patience, I decided to answer. What? I'm busy. Sarah. Where are you now? Where? I'm at home, working. I want to talk about something. Can I come over to your house? Huh? I really don't have anything to talk about with you. Why should I have to meet with you? What a hassle. Just as I was about to brush him off and hang up, I heard my mother-in-law's voice over the phone. Sarah. Long time no see. I'm really sorry, but could we possibly meet and talk? She had always been so domineering, but something seemed off now. She was being unusually humble in asking for a meeting. Reluctantly moved by her serious tone, I agreed to meet. Fine. I'll meet with you, but it's too much trouble to go out, so can you come here? I'll send the location to Kevin. I said that and hung up the phone. Still, I wondered what could be so important that we needed to meet. I pondered this as I resumed my work. 30 minutes later, my home's intercom rang. It seems they had arrived. Yes? We're here. And this place, it's incredible. Did you come here to chat? If so, go home. No, sorry. Please let us in. Though I saw them through the monitor, my ex-husband was there with my mother-in-law behind him. I unlocked the auto lock and invited them into my house. A little while later, the doorbell rang again. I'll open it. I unlocked the door and let them into my house, and they were both visibly astonished. What is this place? A hotel? Sarah, you moved to such an incredible place. What are they doing here? Did they come to tour my house? I don't hear any substantial conversation from the two of them, just astonishment at the luxurious room. So, what did you come here for? If you don't have any business, please leave quickly. You're disturbing my work. I sat down heavily on the sofa and spoke to them in a high-handed manner. Then, as if remembering their original purpose, my ex-husband and mother-in-law suddenly started prostrating themselves in front of me. Please. We can't pay for our living expenses, and our electricity, gas, and water have been shut off. Could you help us out a little? Help? There's no way I would do that. Why should I, who was driven out, have to take care of you guys? What are you talking about in your sleep? Why do I have to pay? You live in such a nice house, surely you can spare a little, right? Yes, that's right. I do feel bad about what I did to you, but we're still relatives, aren't we? Can't you help us? How can they say such unreasonable things with a straight face? I find it utterly incomprehensible. It's a waste of time even to listen to them. Let me make this clear, I was able to buy this house because I worked to the point of death, you know? I was paying your living expenses in place of my husband who has no intention of working. I was bullied by you, mother-in-law, and it even decreased the amount of work I could do. Despite that, I cut back on sleep and worked desperately just to survive. Do you understand that feeling? You wouldn't, would you? You've never struggled, you just exploited me and depended on my earnings. As I said that, the two of them fell silent without any rebuttal. Is that all you came to talk about? Then go home. Also, don't ever come asking for help again, and I don't want to see your faces ever again. If you come again, I'll call the police about a suspicious person. Wait, then how are we supposed to live? What nerve they have. They still dare to beg me at this point. Why should I care? You could earn something yourself by working part-time somewhere. Besides, if Kevin works, the two of you can surely make enough to live on. Don't come crying to me. I'm not helping people who used and bullied me. Just go away. That was the moment when I let out all the emotions I had been holding back. It was the loudest I had ever shouted at my mother-in-law. They probably thought there was no room for negotiation anymore. My ex-husband and mother-in-law hurriedly fled from my house. Their expressions when they saw the inside of this house were priceless. They were so domineering towards me, and now they were completely groveling. Who would help people like them? They should just struggle together. After seeing them off, I returned to my studio and resumed my work. A month later, I was planning to take it easy from the afternoon after doing just enough work in the morning. Shoot. I realized I hadn't opened the living room curtains yet today. Thinking that, I finished up my work and headed to the living room. When I opened the curtains and looked out the window, I spotted my ex-husband and mother-in-law wandering around the high-rise complex. Huh. Isn't that Kevin and mother-in-law? They came back, not learning their lesson. However, they weren't pressing my home's intercom, they were just wandering around aimlessly. They must be mindful of the threat I made. I suppose I should throw them a lifeline. Thinking this, I called them while looking down at the two from my window. Hello? What are you doing? Sarah. What do you mean, what are we doing? Don't play dumb. I can see you from my room right now. Remember what I said? I'd call the police. Wait, we're just wandering, but we aren't doing anything wrong, right? Well, that's true. Their behavior is totally suspicious, though. Then what are you doing? Well, knowing you, you probably came to ask me for help, right? That's true, but since then, I've reflected, and even though it's just temporary, I've found a new job. The salary hasn't come in yet, so I thought maybe you could lend us a little until it does. I'll definitely pay you back once I get paid. Huh. So, you can do it when you're desperate. But I gave up on you because you only act when things get this bad. Huh. So you found a job? That's good then. If you're working, why don't you borrow from a loan shark or something? Bye then. With that, I unilaterally ended the call with my ex-husband. About an hour later, I heard the sound of police sirens. Could it be? Slightly excited, I looked outside and saw my ex-husband and mother-in-law being crammed into a police car. Ah, it ended up like this, huh? I didn't call the police. Probably, other residents thought they were suspicious and reported them. Since that incident, the two of them have stopped relying on me, and I haven't seen them since. I deleted my ex-husband's contact information and changed my mobile number. From now on, I will earn for myself and live undisturbed. My son is dead and you will return to your parents' house, right? We will live in this house. My dear husband suddenly left this world. Right after the funeral, my grieving self was visited by my in-laws. Although not many, this house is filled with memories of living with my husband. Why must I be the one to leave? Yet, without even a moment to wipe my eyes, my mother-in-law ruthlessly said those words. My name is Hannah. I am a clerk working in a real estate agency. The meeting with my dear husband, Brian, happened because of the real estate agency where I work. He was the brother of my male colleague, and the two of them got along very well and often visited since their workplaces were close. As a fellow clerk, I had become close friends with my colleague who would later become my brother-in-law. It was through him that I was introduced to his elder brother. Eventually, I was invited by the brothers to join them for lunch, and we began to spend more time together. I recognized Brian as a cheerful and nice person to talk to, but I hadn't considered him romantically. I thought he felt the same until one day, an event that would change our relationship occurred. We were supposed to meet at a restaurant booked by my colleague, but only he had an urgent matter and could not make it. It seemed a waste to cancel the reservation, so for the first time, we found ourselves alone together. I later learned that the brothers had planned this, with the younger brother arranging for us to be alone at the elder brother's request. The food was delicious, and as we talked, we quickly grew close, sharing our backgrounds and values. The more I learned about his character, the more I was drawn to his warm smile. This day marked a change in our relationship, and it didn't take long before we were married, thanks to the younger brother's arrangements. In that sense, I cannot thank him enough for what has transpired since. Then came the day we met with his parents. I was full of anxiety, but his parents welcomed me very gently. The caring exchange continued, and I began to relax. I'm really glad you came. We were looking forward to meeting you, Hannah. We made a lot of food hoping today would be a good day. My mother-in-law said this and took great care of us. My husband's parents, like their eldest son, were independent people and very easy to get along with. I felt relieved and grateful for the enjoyable time I had at my in-laws' house. Even after many interactions, my in-laws continued to support our happiness, maintaining a distance that did not impose marriage or children on us. Eventually, the topic of living together at my in-laws' house came up, but we had plans to build our own home. Actually, my grandfather left us a house. As I explained, my in-laws listened intently and nodded. My grandfather doted on me, his only granddaughter, and had even perfectly remodeled the home and land he left me before passing away. The land was nearby, and with redevelopment, the land value had soared. However, being in the real estate industry for a long time, I knew that selling the land would be more beneficial for our ideal home plans than living in it. Though I am grateful for my grandfather's love, he had said I could live in or sell the house, so we had already considered selling it. After getting married, we moved there. However, the distance from work and the desirability of the location made it difficult to continue living there. As we were planning to sell, a significant change came into our lives. My husband, a salesperson, was assigned a transfer. His company had branches nationwide, and he was deemed the only suitable candidate for the position, making it an order we could not refuse. I will definitely come back during the holidays. Also, my parents will visit. It's not necessary, but could you take them out? Both your father and mother are very nice people, so going out is no problem. But it seems like selling the house will have to wait. Because of my job, my husband's assignment was decided. It was sudden, but I had to endure the loneliness and worry, waiting for the day we could live together again. As my husband had said, on his days off, my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, would often visit. My mother-in-law used to endure loneliness while raising young children during my father-in-law's business trips. You can still nurture family memories even without children. Let's go out together. Shopping might cheer you up. Let's go, Hannah. Thanks to my mother-in-law, I didn't feel lonely, and my holidays became busy. However, gradually, I began to notice something concerning. Almost every day off from work, my mother-in-law would invite me out. That was fine, but after a month, her invitations became somewhat forceful, disregarding my fatigue and household chores. I wanted to rest this week. When I said this, my mother-in-law frowned as if I were being unreasonable. But it's fun to go out together, isn't it? Or are you saying you don't want to go out with me? It's not like that. But you take me out every week, so don't you think you need a break too, mother? My mother-in-law's face turns sad. I try to clear up the misunderstanding in a hurry, but she refuses to listen. Confused, I agree, and then she suddenly smiles as if she had forgotten how persistently she had clung to me. My suspicions about my mother-in-law's actions grow inside me. The places she forces me to go always end up being expensive. Shopping at brand stores and eating at expensive restaurants continues, and she manipulates it so that I have to pay. Often, she leaves the store first, and I am left to pay. There is no thanks for the payment, nor any offer to pay later. Certainly, having a house and earning a good salary means I don't have to worry about savings. However, my husband and I have always been frugal, so I can't help but feel uneasy about my mother-in-law's lavish behavior. There were times when both in-laws were present, but even then, the situation was the same. If anything, my father-in-law joining in only added to my burden. I knew it needed to be addressed, but it was hard to talk to my husband about it. He had said he would definitely come back on holidays. But his workplace was quite busy, and he couldn't come home easily. Your mother told me you go out every week, but is everything going smoothly? It doesn't seem like you have any worries? When I video call my husband, his under-eye bags and slightly thinner cheeks are noticeable. The fatigue from work is clearly visible. I feel guilty even mentioning the issue with my mother-in-law, so I end up pretending everything is fine. Your mother has been really good to me. Take care of yourself too, Brian. I'm fine, so don't worry. I deceive my husband while I can't refuse to cover the expenses of socializing with my in-laws. However, their behavior gradually escalates, and when I insist, I can't go out today, they start asking for this. Then, hey, could you lend me some money just for a little while? Huh? I have to pay? Just a little, really just a bit. I've already made a reservation at the restaurant. I'll take some other friends instead, so could you cover what I don't have? I wanted to refuse, but doing so would complicate the conversation, leading nowhere. Resigned, I opened my wallet. But I never showed such an attitude in front of my husband. Maybe you should ask Brian? When I subtly probed my mother-in-law, I was surprised by her response. It's shameful to ask Brian. She thinks it's embarrassing to ask her eldest son, so it's better to ask his wife for money. I had long given up on my mother-in-law, and it became a daily occurrence for her to ask for money. At least if I give her some pocket money, she stops forcing me out. I knew this had turned into a significant problem. But the inability to talk with my mother-in-law had left me utterly exhausted. My mother-in-law's actions became increasingly inexplicable and odd. She would show up unannounced and survey the inside and outside of the house as if she were invading my privacy. Is this decor left by your grandfather, Hannah? It's marvelous to have the luxury to furnish such high-end items. Some of the furniture included antiques my grandfather had liked. My mother-in-law seemed to enjoy them, coming over to gaze at them dreamily as if they were her own. This is my and my husband's house. I finally began to consider opening up about my mother-in-law's behavior. My husband might be surprised, but it would be so much better if we could figure out how to handle her together. Her actions were never pleasant. As much as we are in-laws, it's an invasion of privacy. However, just as I was dealing with this, the duration of my husband's assignment was determined. Just a little more patience, and he would be back, and hopefully, the in-laws asking for money would end, a faint hope sprouting in my heart. My husband is working hard every day, so my patience would last a little longer. I was looking forward to reuniting with my husband, but the situation took an unexpected turn. What? Brian has collapsed and is in the hospital? My mind goes blank. The call came from a colleague at his assignment location, and I rushed to the hospital. Maybe it was the strain of his busy schedule, but suddenly, he had a heart attack. Brian was transported by ambulance, but it was too late, and my healthy and kind husband unexpectedly passed away. I couldn't accept the reality as I faced the funeral. I don't remember much due to the overwhelming grief. My brother-in-law rushed over, and he took care of most of the arrangements. I'm sorry. You've just lost your brother, and yet you're helping so much. It's my brother's funeral, so it's natural to help. By the way, is everything okay with the land? Is the house ready? As the funeral was winding down, I talked with my brother-in-law while cleaning up. I nodded and replied, "It's all set." And a few days after my husband's funeral, my in-laws came to the house together. However, it was clear they were not there to console me. It's a pity about our son's sudden passing, but we are here, so don't worry. My mother-in-law's face was oddly grinning. Even more astonishing, she had arranged a truck, which was packed full with furniture and other items from her home. I was too shocked and confused to speak. This doesn't look like a simple move. My mother-in-law and her husband are trying to move in without any discussion. What is making them do this? But the answer is clear. Could it be that you're after our land? Despite the confusion, I voice a concern that has always been in my heart. My mother-in-law gave a cold smirk. The land value has really shot up. I've been targeting this house for a long time. In fact, you only got married to my son because of this inheritance. I allowed the marriage because you were the one who inherited it. Filled with despair, I am at a loss for words. Are you saying that you and I will live together? What? What nonsense are you talking about? I ask this amidst the confusion, and my mother-in-law raises her eyebrows. Brian's death was unexpected, but actually, even if it hadn't happened, my mother-in-law intended to take this house. The in-laws planned to oust me and take over the land. And they assumed I would just leave the house. My son is dead and you will return to your parents' house, right? It would be a shame for this house to be empty, so we will live in it. That's why I'm telling you not to worry. My mother-in-law's smile twists into a sinister grin. Despite my fear, I point out her mistake. The house has already been sold though. I hold back my laughter at my mother-in-law's misunderstanding, but I can't hide my half-smile. In response, my mother-in-law freezes and says, "What? Just then, a moving truck from a different company arrives. "I'm sorry, but we're here to move things into your house." Because a truck from another company is already parked there, a sturdy mover gets out to check with us. The movers my mother-in-law had arranged also descend. Realizing something is amiss as work cannot begin due to the other truck's presence, they start asking the in-laws for an explanation, but both are too flustered to provide a clear answer. Arguing with everyone here would be pointless. Seeing the in-laws in a panic, I finally start to regain my composure. I then promptly instruct them to move the truck. This house already has a buyer and the contract is complete. A new family will be moving in, so you can't just bring these people's stuff into someone else's home, right? As the movers are shocked by the situation, a luxury car arrives. Out step a wealthy couple and their children. In fact, this land is no longer mine. They are the new owners. The in-laws grow even more confused, unable to understand what is happening. "Please move the truck quickly, the new residents can't start their work." Once I manage to get the mother-in-law's truck moved, the movers begin working swiftly, carrying in brand new furniture according to planned procedures. My mother-in-law and her husband, unable to accept this, start pestering me at the entrance. When the buyer, the husband, sees his family to the car and comes over to confront us, a different chaos ensues. "Who are these people? We bought this house. Please send the truck back soon." I hadn't expected the in-laws to visit, so I apologize profusely and somehow appease the buyer. But the mother-in-law and her husband don't leave. Instead, they push past us and rush into the house. Of course, the inside of the house has completely changed from what they knew. None of the furniture my husband and I used remains. My mother-in-law is shocked by the sight and begins to create a scene. "What is this? The house is empty. The antique furniture and lighting. I love those. What's going on here?" She can't comprehend what has happened and is outraged. When the new residents finally shout, "We will call the police," my father-in-law, who had been flustered, bolts and drags my mother-in-law away. As they move a bit away from the scene, the heated mother-in-law gradually becomes dazed and quiets down. I first apologized to the new residents. Told that future problems could still arise, I take down the names and addresses of the in-laws to somehow secure release. Though weighed down by a strong sense of fatigue, I still have to explain things to the in-laws. I return to them and calmly inform them that the move had been completed a few days before my husband passed away. This house was originally planned to be sold with the land, so everything is according to the initial plan. There was a pause in our plans due to my husband's assignment. But a certain background allowed us to proceed smoothly with the discussion. The person who supported our decision was my brother-in-law. I was bewildered by the change in my in-laws, who had started asking me for money, but I didn't want to worry my husband and couldn't talk about it, continuing to brood. My brother-in-law noticed this and came to my rescue. He doesn't get along well with our in-laws and had told me that he would help if there was any trouble. Wanting neither to spoil my relationship with my husband nor with the in-laws, I trusted my brother-in-law, who promised to keep things confidential, and decided to consult him fully. When I told him everything, he was furious with the in-laws. As my husband's brother and a colleague at my workplace, he understood the in-laws' schemes well. For him, his brother Brian was his only family, and he said that I was like family too. I think our parents will eventually try to live in that house or conveniently kick us out to take it for themselves. My brother-in-law says that both my in-laws have such high-end tastes that they are naive about the ways of the world. They are vain and unscrupulous. Especially my mother-in-law, she acts like a lovely lady as long as she looks good on the outside, but in reality, she is mean-spirited and only thinks of herself. Because they are blood-related, the stories my brother-in-law tells about the in-laws are quite intense. They pretend to be something they're not in front of their eldest son, so my husband probably never knew this side of his parents. Anyway, He suggested that we sell the land early so it wouldn't be taken by my in-laws. I agreed with my brother-in-law's opinion and decided to proceed with the sale. Even though it was something important left by my dear grandfather, I wanted to avoid having the existence of this house become a problem for us as a couple. In fact, because it was important, I didn't want to leave any troubles behind. Of course, it wasn't a decision I made on my own. I had discussed it with my husband while he was alive, and he agreed. At that time, he became aware of all the actions of his parents. I didn't want to tell him, but I couldn't complete the sale on my own. However, he understood the feelings I couldn't consult him about, and he couldn't forgive his parents' actions. I'm sorry I didn't notice. If it's okay with you, Hannah, let's complete the sale before my parents can make a move. I'm sorry that it's such an important house inherited from your grandfather. No. If it's going to cause trouble, my grandfather would agree to let it go. I decided to sell the land not because of the relationship with my in-laws, but to protect the future with my husband. Regarding the sale, my brother-in-law, who is an expert in real estate, worked hard to find the best buyer. What I needed to do was to find a new place to move to as soon as possible and act naturally so as not to alert my in-laws. The house had some signs of use because we had lived there, but it was practically new, which helped keep the price down. This allowed us to find a buyer quickly, and the sale was completed smoothly. That was the family that arrived earlier. I was supposed to wait in our new house for Brian's return. He was happy about the sale, which was the only regret. As the movers efficiently carried in the furniture, the ousted in-laws watched the moving process proceed steadily. They stood dumbfounded without making any noise, but they couldn't stay like that forever. The movers that the in-laws had hired came up furiously demanding an explanation. From their perspective, it was an inexplicable error that caused a double booking of movers. I can't believe this is happening. This is a breach of contract. They confronted the in-laws, but they fumbled and couldn't provide a clear explanation. Eventually, the household goods had to be taken back, and it seems they were charged a significant extra fee due to the unforeseen circumstances. Finally grasping the situation, my mother-in-law trembled and clung to me. This is the house of the eldest son's wife, so it's our house, right? This is strange, isn't it? She tried to persuade me with strained excuses, but I ignored them and left with only my hand luggage. The land already belonged to the new family, and it wasn't mine anymore, so I had nothing to answer. The memorial service for my husband went smoothly. Although I saw my in-laws there, they seemed like they wanted to say something about the house to me, but in the end, they couldn't and just slinked away. Since I no longer had any obligation to communicate with them, we hardly spoke as there was no reason to. I spend my days peacefully, facing the sorrow of losing my husband in the small house we were supposed to restart our lives in as a couple. Although I had a substantial amount of savings from the sale, without Brian, plans for building our own home were extinguished. Returning to work, I immerse myself in the few memories I have of my husband, gradually trying to look forward and rediscover myself. Meanwhile, my in-laws, especially my mother-in-law, must have been accumulating frustrated dissatisfaction. I didn't want any more to do with her, so I hadn't informed her of my new address. Unable to interact with me, that seemed to increase her dissatisfaction. She had put on airs in front of her eldest son and couldn't go to her other son, whom she didn't get along with, and now she didn't even know where I was. The stress continued to build, and eventually, my mother-in-law lost her balance. One night, she attempted a heinous act of pouring gasoline around the house that had been sold. Fortunately, a passing neighbor found it suspicious and restrained her immediately, preventing any incident. When the police were called, they found she had prepared things like old papers and lighters, and she was arrested on suspicion of attempted arson. The owner of the house, realizing it was the woman who had shown up on the moving day, was extremely upset and contacted me to definitely prosecute. I apologized repeatedly, but it was an apology for the terrifying experience of nearly having the house set on fire, and there was nothing I could do about my mother-in-law's attempted arson. In the end, the case against my mother-in-law, who was obsessed with the house, could not be dismissed. I also managed to get forgiveness by apologizing repeatedly and promised that such an incident would never happen again. My mother-in-law, raised in luxury and used to getting whatever she wanted, became frustrated when she couldn't have the house as she desired, leading to twisted jealousy. She came to resent the house and the land, committed a crime, and eventually ended up in prison. My father-in-law, who should have been supportive, used her arrest as an excuse to argue incessantly and forcefully divorced her. So, even when her sentence is up, she has completely lost a home to return to. But that is the result of her chosen actions. My brother-in-law, feeling lonely after losing his brother, encourages me, saying, "I can bear it because I have a sister-in-law." Although the ties with my in-laws were successfully severed, I haven't lost all family. For the sake of my husband watching over me from heaven, I've decided to spend peaceful days.